students. Now today we are going to start a new topic, that is lesson number 7 from history, colonial rule and education in India. So number 7, colonial rule and education in India. So student, in this chapter what we are going to learn, which are the objectives of this lesson. So first, what we will learn through this lesson. So first we will understand and appreciate how the education system in place, and that is treated as being universal today, has its own history. So whatever the education system was started by the British, and how nowadays it is as a universal form. Second thing, what we will learn from this lesson, understand how the politics of education is closely related to the issue of power and identity. So education, how it's play important role in the politics, and it's closely related to the issue of power and identity. Let's begin with social concept. See, so education and a state, how it's the education, it's a state, it's a situation. So see, it's not always enough to conquer a piece of a land and gain control of its economic, administrative and political structures. So what students share is to only get power, to only conquer that piece of land and control of economy or any land. That is not very important. But see, the fully colonies, the colonials have to control the way people think. So what they think, those who are the colonialism, the colonial. Okay, so colonialism means that colonies, that British people, they came in India in the name of, as you know, the trade, and they settled down here, they ruled us. So with their rule, they settled down in India. So with their rules, Indian people, they were living their life. So they thought the Indian people, they should get education. Apart from these things, so the politics behind introduction the system of education in colony, and therefore provides knowledge about the colonial structure being put into place. So what is the motto, what is the aim? To provide the knowledge, to come to know about the colonial structure. That is a motto or politics behind to introduce the education system in colony, okay, or in India. Now see, the British consolidated their position in India by gaining control over political, economic and administrative structures. So what happened, students? So that British people, the British government, they got their position in India by getting control over the political and also economic and administrative structures. Everywhere they controlled. Okay. And thereafter, question of educating and civilizing the people arose in the minds of the British rulers, who largely consider Indian as a backward, ignorant and uncivilized. So what that British people, that ruler, they thought about as a Indian people should be given education. Why? Because they thought, they recognize Indian people are as a backward, means they are not in a flow of as a Western culture, as a new scientific view. They are backward, ignorant, they are ignorant and also uncivilized, uncultured. So they have to provide the education. Okay, that was their thinking. Okay. So now see, the next point is that education in India before the British. So what we are going to learn through this point. So how the education system was before the British came in India. See, when the British arrived in India, education was imparted to children through the system of pathshalas and madrasas, which were rather informal in terms of their functioning. So students, before that British people coming to India, our education system was totally dependent as imparted. Means only that education, that knowledge was passed, that information was passed from one to another, is from family to family. Only that information was passed through from one to another. So that was the system, and known as the pathshalas and madrasas. So suppose that the Ved, Puran, whatever is taught in that pathshalas, it's only to pass the information. So such a type of education was there in India before the British people coming to India. Now next point, these institutions function on assistance received from rulers, chiefs and rich citizens, and there was no fixed fee charge. So what happened that time? So whatever the institution that pathshalas, madrasas were running, so they were assistants that received from that type of that who were the king at that time, the chiefs, the rich citizens from there, and no fixed fee charge. Nowadays in school, we pay the fixed fee to the school, maybe suppose government or we non-government, so we pay the fee for our education. Means we have the fixed structure of the fee, but that time there were no such a fixed fee structure of the fee. Then students could pay according to what their families could afford. So as per their family's economic condition, what the families afford, as per their condition, they had to pay the fee. There were no separate classes for different students. Yes, now the students we have, as means from every class, each and every class we have the separate class as per our class. Suppose first, second, third, 8, 9, 10. But that time what happened? All the children would attend the same class, which would generally be held under trees. That is a Gurukul, that is a Pathshala. That school was run under the trees as an open space. Okay, and generally all type of students they were sitting together under the trees and taking the same education, which is on the totally base to pass the information. Then out in the open or near temples and mosques, where that schools were running, the school were under the trees and also some open or near temples and some mosques. So that were the places for the schools. Next point, see this, how was the education? We are talking about the system. How was the education before British came to India? Number third, subject taught were mostly literature, law, religion, philosophy and logic. No formal syllabus was followed by the teacher, who imparted knowledge based on the level of the children in the class. So what was the education? The subjects taught. Which were the subjects at that time? Only that literature, means writing work, as a suppose a poems, prose, that verses, that literature, novels, dramas, and law, the some rules regarding religion. So the education was given of the religion, that law and the literature, philosophy, tattva and logic. Okay, so such a kind of subject were taught. Nowadays we have different kind of streams such as art, commerce, science and engineering. Means whatever we have the different kinds of subjects and streams to take our education. Okay, means then who imparted knowledge based on the level of the children in the class, and they only passed their knowledge information on the basis of that students class. That were the subjects taught in that time. Next, the greatest advantage of this system was, what was the greatest advantages of this system was its ability to adjust to the patterns of life. So what was the ability to give the ability to adjust the patterns of life, to live the life. So with this basic values, human can live a proper life. So that was the benefit of that education. For instance, in villages, these schools would close down during the harvest season so that children belonging to the poor families could help the harvest. So what happens to that time? So such a kind of schools, they were stopped, they were closed during the time of harvest. Harvest means to cut down that crops. That students, they had to help their parents. That's why that schools were stopped. When the questions of reforming of the Indian education system arose, the British had to decide whether to continue with traditional systems of learning or impose the Western system. So students see, so these are some systems, the way of teaching in the before that period. But after that, that British people, British rule government, they thought, they decided which kind of education should be continue, whether their traditional or they should go with their Western system as their English culture, as their the medium as a learning as a English as a Western system. So see, so this is the education. Now see the next point, and that is British attitudes towards education. Now see how was the attitudes they are thinking towards the education under British people. Okay, now see here student. Then in the early years of their rule, the British did not pay much attention to the issue of education. However, the so the British attitudes towards education. So in the early years, at the beginning, their rule, the British did not pay much attention to issue of education. So that British people, they did not pay much attention towards the education. And however, the various administrative and economic requirements of ruling a country soon forced them to refocus their attention. So whenever they came to know the need of the people that in their offices, in their every field, then they come to know the importance of education, and then they thought there should be education to the Indian people, because to run their administration in various and economic way. Okay, so see, the English East India Company required educated Indians for a variety of reasons. See, so why they started education? They thought there's a need of education to Indian people for their various field purpose, for their various requirement purpose. Okay, like that. So they wanted to give the education to Indian people. So let us see which are the reasons why they started the education. Okay, now see